So, welcome. The thing that we want to do in this meeting is to see, like, what is the link between the commons and Giveth being a DAC, a decentralized altruistic community. What makes it different and what are the similarities? Because we're currently called a DAC, but we're very interested in everything that is the commons and working on a common stack. So I thought it would be interesting to go through like the 8 rules, I think, of Eleanor Ostrom, and like Josh is a very good specialist, and like that's how we actually met Josh at like the Web3 summit last year, where he took out the big book and like started going through the rules, and it was really awesome. So I was just thinking doing that, and so for a format, I was thinking of going through the 8 rules by Eleanor Ostrom, what a commons is, and then every time between each rule, where Josh can give a bit of an explanation what that rule is, that we like do a round and that people can reflect upon it, like how are we like applying this rule within Giveth, and should we? Maybe you guys have other thoughts, like what some other things are that we could question?
I don't think rule may be the proper term. It's more like a design principle. It's something that you take into consideration from the very beginning, that the rules are like almost different on the position. Yeah.
Sorry, I don't understand what you meant with this.
Eleanor,
That's not a rule but a principle.
A design principle, yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah, makes sense. Yeah, I also felt like the rule feels like a very strong word. But yeah, so in any case, like that principle, like go through it and like reflect back anything that you think of, like just improvise. We have lots of time, we have 90 minutes, but we don't have to take the 90 minutes, but we just want to leave the space to just like reflect and see like, hey, when I think of this, Giveth does this and that, and maybe this is something when we get this that it is useful, because to me it's more, that's why I put like I put it as like the intention of the meeting is like absorbing information about what commons is, and also sharing like how we feel about this and how this makes sense. And a possible outcome could be a wiki explanation of like, yeah, this is Giveth, this is commons, and like where are we? If it is a line or a roadmap or something, are we evolving towards the commons or not? Like these questions would be cool to get to. And voila, now we end with a checkout. Bad start.
That's what happens when you leave the door open.
Yeah. So we can just dive right in, I guess, unless there are any questions of thoughts. For like when I check the checklist, so Josh is the body. Will this be an emotional or rational meeting? I think pretty rational, to be honest. And mobile devices during sessions, personally, it doesn't bother me. Like if you don't have anything to say. Also, like in going around, if you don't have anything that you feel like adding, you just say like skip, pass, and we move on. Any thoughts?
What's the first principle?
Yeah.
Well, is there an outcome?
Yeah, the outcome is writing, if possible, like a wiki explanation, like where are we on, like if we want to evolve, do we want to evolve to the common commons, and if we do, where are we, what is the stage, like so that when people come to Giveth and you hear about the common stack and all these things, but they also hear about DACs, where are we in that story?
Okay, sounds good. I also kind of want to score us, quantify.
That's a good check.
Like on each principle, like 4 out of 10. You know.
So maybe we should have like a checkbox for each person, and each person can do it, and then we sum the average.
Yeah.
Also, the scale across the room is a good way to do scores like that, just with bodies. Like I did yesterday, you know,
yeah,
like,
that was a good one.
like that wall is 10, we're 100% on this principle, and this wall is 1.
And then we keep people like active because they stand up for a second between each rule. It's not a bad thing. Yeah, let's do that. Let's use the scale, and like we will define. Yeah, so that's like 0 and that's 10. Okay, what is the first design principle?
The first design principle is defining clear group boundaries.
Okay, can you tell us a little bit more about what that means?
So boundary in terms of the huertas would be having like your place in the order of things. So we know that we're going to cycle water, so the clear boundary is the first person to get water is defined, second person to get water is defined, third, fourth, fifth, and then it will cycle round, so you know where you are in the order of things. So not everybody's going to be first all the time, but it's going to cycle round. So there's a clear boundary that those who draw water first are the people that have drawn water the last time, that kind of thing. We could consider a clear group boundary, access to resources. So if we want a budget of some sort, it's like where the boundary lies on that. If we want to do, I don't know, filming for instance, it's like, do we have access to Kai's camera? Not really, but that's his camera, I'm sure. Those kinds of things, it's the boundary conditions. So around that, I guess the question to ask is, what are the things that we need boundary conditions on?
So that it's really almost anything that has to do with like defining the boundaries of an organization.
It's clear boundaries, yeah.
Clear boundaries.
So,
By boundaries, you mean also like a scope? Or like pool of resources that you manage? I mean, what are the boundaries of the resources that are common to everyone? And
how much you can draw from the well, yeah. No.
so it's like having different dimensions or levels or levels on which you can add boundaries. You should like define several layers or something and then define boundaries on them. I'm getting that right?
It is, yeah, I think so. In multiple levels there will be multiple layers of boundaries, so it's quantify things, I guess, really. It's like make things explicit is really what it's trying to say. At least I believe that.
So would it be helpful for us to define or to list what we think are Giveth group boundaries?
I think so, yeah.
Well, access to shared resources, as you said, like who has access to the Google Docs, who has access to unicorn rooms, like there's certain rooms that are not public, who's in them. What else do we have?
Who can make campaigns?
Yeah, this is maybe indeed an extra good layer to add.
We have GitHub, merge rights.
GitHub, yeah.
So access is one for when it comes to Giveth, like to documentation, everything that's documentation.
So these are sort of like the gates at the edge of Giveth.
It's not
that
the
we
document.
gatekeep, and when someone gets past that
But
gate,
you're
it's
talking
really
about administration access or
Yeah, exactly. It's more than the administration access, because anyone can make a pull request, but only some people can merge it, right? Anyone can write in the wiki.
Yeah.
Anyone can do documentation, but only some people can do GitHub, make campaigns, Google Docs, unicorn rooms, or the unicorn room.
Okay.
Like, I guess private rooms, right?
Boundaries, yeah, so admin access.
What are other boundaries?
YouTube.
But
That's
who?
admin access.
That's
So-
admin
Admin
access.
access.
Yeah.
Yes, this is all
But we
permission
should
layer.
probably
This is YouTube,
break
this is
that
Facebook,
out
this
where
is
possible.
Twitter,
So YouTube,
all
Medium,
accounts, it's Gandhi, it's DigitalOcean. I mean, I
Yeah.
started to compile a list, but it's so exhaustive, like, so many people have access to so many things, and it's great that we bring it up in this context. I think it kind of like, it's a very large topic, so this should definitely go as a breakout to define those.
Yeah, well then
And,
that is indeed like we can now like list all of them. What is the use of doing that? Maybe if it's like about like talking about the security and making sure that we like safeguard of all of Giveth, we can do that. I think.
That is where it's useful that we compile these lists and keep them updated.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I think I see also like where we don't have group boundaries that are similar, that are common in other groups, other organizations, and maybe this would help us define are we a commons, are we a business, are we what? Because like I think it's really common that, for instance, you can't just start working on something in an organization, or you can't like be paid without, being hired formally, but we don't have those.
Yeah.
So in some ways, some gates that are really common in other organizations are wide open with us. So I don't know if that
No, it's very linked to this.
does that
for
make us
sure.
a commons or not? Because we have fuzzy boundaries on a lot.
We have fuzzy boundaries for sure. So that's maybe then something that we have to talk about. Like, is it?
Well, wait, are they fuzzy? Like, yes, it's open, but that doesn't mean it's not clear. Like, in the end, reward DAO and
Okay.
has a clear structure. People have points. Like, there is a boundary layer, but it has lots of doors for people to come in and out.
Yeah.
So I put it as liberty to just start working on whatever you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm still like sensing what's the best formula to like do this.
So do we score ourselves on whether or not we think?
I would talk a little bit more about this because there's a lot to boundaries. There's so many aspects
Well,
to it.
what does a commons have that's group boundaries?
Yeah, are boundaries important for a commons? Do you actually need a lot of like very defined boundaries? What defines a commons when it comes to boundaries?
I think it varies, but typically the boundaries will be explicit. So, like, you're allowed to take this much water out of the huertas. You're allowed to chop 15 trees out of the Swiss cantons.
Or even your boundary could be, you know, this is the field and this is the community that field is shared by. You are in the community or you are outside the community, and you are within the field or you are outside of the field. Those are the boundaries to very basic commons.
Yeah, I think the rule here is how well defined is it, right? Like, we would get a low score if our boundaries aren't well defined, and we get a high score if our boundaries are well defined. And every commons needs to define their boundaries, but they, you know, and they can still be a commons if they do a shitty job at defining their boundaries. They're just a shittier commons, right? Like,
Yeah. Well, so maybe we can do that, like start just as a try for this first one to do that round, to actually give the chance to everyone to talk and just think of, if you think of boundaries in connection with Giveth, we have MNXs, you have the liberty to start working, but there are a lot of other things. Before we go to the scoring part, when you think of boundaries and Giveth, what comes up into your head to boundaries being well defined or being ill defined? What do you think of that we are doing or not doing when it comes to boundaries?
I think we have a lack of. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
That's
Or we
okay.
can do a circle. Whoever wants to start. You
Yeah,
gotta pass it on to
The
someone.
thing I was just thinking about is crypto fluency. So like, to be a part of Giveth, there's like a degree of crypto literacy, right? And even specific to Ethereum blockchain literacy.
Yeah. Others that you think of, Danny?
I think that we do a poor job at defining who's able to open different doors, right? Like, how is Andre not in our unicorns chat right now on Riot? So there isn't a person that's in charge of making sure that owns the admin rights to it. Yeah.
Is that piggyback? I think it is. Yeah, it's not about the person, it's about the list, actually, because, for instance, Marco shared with me the Google Drive. I didn't have access to that or even know it existed. I kind of knew it existed, I just didn't know where to
The
find
commons
it.
one, yeah.
All Google things. I don't know any of this stuff. Nobody gave me an induction. I self-inducted. So, what
It's,
are things? Where do they live? I don't know. I spent
That's
2 months
onboarding in
ages.
a way, right? And
Yeah.
maybe yours is linked to onboarding as well. It's
The
like how
only strict onboarding process thing we have is for the Unicorn DAC.
yeah, indeed.
Yeah, I mean that's that self onboarding principle that we have, is you also have to have self motivation to ask the questions for what you need.
Yeah, that is true. So that is not per se a bad thing, but the adding the like finding like the resources, it is to some extent on the wiki. Even the link to the but the actual admin link of course isn't on the wiki, to the Google Doc. Someone was raising a hand. Oh, okay.
So that's why I think like I'm having this problem repeatedly with Google Docs, and I mean I mentioned it before, and then I get go to our Google Drive folder, and I mean to be honest it's a mess, and like it never gets any cleaning up, and
clean
like
it up.
who can clean it up, because it's a legacy of so many people, so many different documents.
It's owned by Grace.
So there's I mean, there's many documents, even not so many that survived through all the years that we still use the same document for, but there is many that say. And so my whole that was the reason for bringing in the forum, for having something between the chat and the wiki and the Lumio, and because that is for stuff like that, where you can have easy access URLs because they're nice and they can be remembered, and it's mixed media, so you can put anything in there and you can happily edit, and also the process of editing is not as formal as it is on the wiki.
Yeah.
And everybody can comment, so it has different dynamics, and I want to make another advertisement for it to use it for exactly those things, curated lists of stuff that's important for whatever purpose.
For
Onboarding
sure.
is one.
I think personally that is linked to roles as well. It's like you have to assign someone to be responsible for that documentation process, because it's an important one when it comes to boundaries. It's all over the place and it's nowhere. Go
I
ahead.
just wanted to add a little on that one. I think it's pretty important what it's being mentioned, and onboarding. Maybe not for me. I'm probably like a newcomer, but the onboarding could be something like for everybody, like for anybody that just sees Giveth, like they can have a happy path to follow, like, okay, here's Giveth and here's where I start, and here's like the whole thing, and it's like guiding the user through a journey, and actually the user like completely comprehending everything. That is actually not for me, like for everyone to actually understand everything about. That is actually what I will find the most useful on the onboarding. Yeah.
Right now I see that part when you're explaining a little bit as a filter. The people who are not scared of the fact that Giveth is this moving animal with many sides, and dig deeper and ask those questions, get those answers. Because for example, for the DAP onboarding, we have a complete procedure.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree, but I mean, I completely agree. Like if it's, for example, someone like me, but I'm talking more about, I think, about like an outside user. Like if it's an outside user, they will say like, oh, I don't understand it. It's a limit.
I've been an outside user recently, let's say, and for me it was about come and join us. Come on the chats. Let's meet. I mean, when you had you were at the other place, like you left the house open for people. That's kind of the onboarding process that I'm feeling here. I mean, I've been on net. I've been on. It's very much important to video to let people show who they really are. So
yeah, I think
those terms, maybe the boundaries should be defined following that pattern. Again, relationship. I'm feeling a lot of importance on relationship on Giveth.
I think that's a great point, and I don't want to extend this like anymore, but I think I'm being like, I'm trying to be specific on the outside user that doesn't have interest, like, and doesn't know about anything. Like that's the kind of it's like another onboarding. It's like onboarding for someone that doesn't have knowledge and actually is not interested.
And we want to onboard those people. That's
yeah, and that's exactly what I'm trying to like point out. Like it's like another whole onboarding process that it needs to be so simple that they see it and it's like, okay, well, this clicks and boom, I get it.
And maybe this process defines the boundary from someone who is outside Giveth and the process of coming into Giveth.
Yeah.
There's a clear boundary defined by this onboarding process that you are outside, now here's a bunch of information, you are now inside. To bring it back to boundaries of Giveth.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, and is that then under this, or does it need another point? Or am I missing?
I think that's
I'm
sufficient.
gonna say we're definitely not on pace to finish this
No.
course, so we should probably keep going if we.
We have
if
90
there's
minutes. We have 90 minutes.
And
We
how
have
many
60 minutes now.
how many principals are there?
8.
We're on one.
Yeah.
No, okay, but fine. But I wanted to give the space.
One
and then
question,
we can-
how well defined and structured is the galaxy concept? Because after Jeff's comment, I see that very much, like having not a nucleus, of course, but like planets and stuff. And
But that's like indeed when I think of timing, that is defined in an article and it's written on the wiki and it's on our website
Okay.
what the galaxy is and so on. So that's maybe more something for the naming section.
So, but my question is, it has sense to base our boundaries evaluation on that, because those are boundaries, planets, stuff.
That is a definition of what a boundary is, but here more is the question like are they defined or not within Giveth? And I think galaxy and these others are defined. So my question is first before we go to like giving it a score, are there other things when you think of Giveth and boundaries? One thing that I'm immediately thinking of is because we're a decentralized and distributed team, there is not a clear boundary between work and like your personal life. There's a very fluid balance because I also see most of you as actually also friends that I say very personal stuff to, which is a good thing. But sometimes it's also difficult to take a distance because of that. So that is a boundary thing that I'm thinking of.
Yeah. You
Go
could
ahead.
just say like work life is fluid.
Yeah, with its positive and negative sides. Any other boundary things?
No.
No? Then I think we can vote indeed to move on. How well do you think when it comes to restate the question, when it comes to Giveth and what the definition is, how well or ill-defined boundaries are in the universe of Giveth? Very low, very high. This is 0, this is 10. And now you have to all get up and give a score by just standing somewhere.
What? This is high, this is low. No,
That is low, that is high.
This is
High
low,
boundary.
low, high.
And let's just say the curtain is the wall.
Alright.
Here.
So
Okay,
go into your
can you
room.
repeat the question?
So when you think of Giveth and like if boundaries are ill or well defined, are they rather low or are they rather high? And this is a score from 1 to 10, you would say. Okay, and I'm gonna be here. Wow, this is a pretty low score actually. So what would you guys say? Is it like a
I don't think it doesn't make us a comments though.
no, for sure not. But it's just like something
No.
that to focus on to that we can still work on.
Yeah.
Maybe a 3 out of 10.
I'm really fascinated by this
Four.
because
Is this-
I feel like our boundaries are very well defined, but they're just open.
Yeah, but
And
that's
so
why
it
I'm standing here.
feels
We're very
like they're
open.
not.
I'm standing here because we're open, not because the definition of our boundaries. It's a different question.
It's not about the fact that they're open, it's are they well defined or are they ill defined? Are those
Well, they
boundaries?
are. You have to choose.
Yeah.
Are you in it or are you not?
I would propose that we do numbers. I think
Yeah.
the idea is fun, but
Uh-huh.
we don't.
Definitely.
No, but guys, the numbers don't go quicker. That's not the point. We were just discussing about the fact, like, what are we voting on? If it's about boundaries being ill or well defined, if they're open, you don't have to give a low score.
Right.
It's like, are they defined? Do you know the boundaries when it comes to giving?
I guess the second corollary on that is, are they well defined and are they well communicated after they've been defined?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
perhaps someone like Danny works a lot with defining them, which is
Mhm.
great, but then how well do we communicate that to the outside world in a consistent fashion so that that can be understood and
Okay, so do you want to stand somewhere else? We can also do scoring, but I think that's going to take way more time, Griff, if you have to like calculate or
Well,
do
but we won't be able to record. If we have to record it, it'll be faster to just say a number.
Okay, just say number then.
So let's
I'm,
work on
I'm
take
recording
note.
it. I'm recording it.
Okay, so I give a 6.
What's our scale? 1 to 10?
1 to 10.
Okay. On how clear our group boundaries are defined.
And communicate it.
So Chris says 6. Josh, what do you think?
I'm a 4.
4.
Yeah, I don't know half of them.
I'm 8.
8.
I'm an 8 as well.
3.5.
4.
4.
I
Ah.
have to say 6.
Jeff? Okay.
And I'll say 5.
Okay.
But I missed some. Who said 3.5? Gustavo? Chris.
No,
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 Chris.
7.
Okay. And you said 4? No, 6.
I mean, it's a
Yeah, we'll have to move on.
It's a
an
tricky
endless
question
discussion.
for us because I was just want to give my resume because we're on one hand radically inclusive, so that's a boundary. It's like anybody can come and this is defined and everybody knows and this is lived. And on the other hand, there is a clear distinction between real power in the editing capabilities, and there is like also these. What I read in this new manifesto book, which was interesting, was the separation of concerns between different bodies or functions, like the people and the commons itself. They would have different boundaries because, like, there is one function which is the editor, which is basically what's doing the boundaries on the content level.
Yeah, but that is this is an action point that we can work on that. So
And just as a last thing, and we do have multi-sigs, and they are very strongly defined, like who's on them.
for sure. Okay, next point, because indeed we need to stay on schedule. What's the second principle?
Match rules governing common goods to local needs and conditions.
Match rules to?
Match rules governing goods to local needs and conditions, or shared goods, I suppose. So this would be, for instance, the wiki rules regarding pull requests, having a dependent party. Like, I always assign my pull request to Kai because locally I know that he'll deliver on usually pushing that out to the wiki. So that's like, yeah.
Match rules match
governing
conditions.
common goods to local needs and conditions.
To local
So
needs.
the rules surrounding the boundaries need to be matched to the needs. So if I'm waiting 3 weeks for Kai to push a wiki thing that Chris needs, then there's a blocking issue. But luckily he doesn't do any of that.
Okay, so when it comes to doing that, like we have a sort of, maybe I can call it like governance versus the actions, something like that. Is that summarizing well?
Local needs and conditions. What are our local needs and conditions?
Local needs and conditions would be having access to requirements. So
Yeah,
to,
no, but
to make
in the
make
given
that harder.
situation, what are our local
So
needs?
to me, this comes down to like the unicorn DAC and milestone reviewing.
Sure.
Because
Yep.
we're governing how energy is used, we're making decisions, and even our roles process.
Yep. And reward down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, reward DAO, you said one more then?
Unicorn DAC roles, reward DAO.
And then
Points giving?
same with all the admin stuff as well.
Oh, milestone reviewers. So
Yeah, indeed.
milestone and campaign reviewers.
Well, I would just say that functionality
Mhm.
because that covers it.
Yep.
Okay, other things that we have in this one?
So actually all of that goes to the list that we last created, because the rules are the group boundaries, aren't they?
Interesting, huh?
Boundaries is an explicit rule.
Yeah.
So
We should think about that these are really the rules that were observed for local commons, and we are dealing here with global commons. We are decentralized community working over the internet, which is a global commons. Anybody, like, I hear there's a team in Nepal, never met the guys, I hope I will, but you know, they can work with us. And we provide low and low friction, or at least that's the goal. So this is something I think we should just let it be and emerge, because this is like, that's how it is. It's an interesting thing. Our rules are embedded into the software we use. Remember, we are coming from blockchain. We're a blockchain entity. There's even maximalists who say code is law. But yeah, it turns out, also in the absence of a legal entity and structure that comes with that, we tend to have our roles in the permission layers and the softwares we use. And they're embedded there.
And so because these rules and these things we have are like some of the boundaries that we have defined, and what is the distinction with the first one? What else do we?
So it's so the boundary might be defined, but are the rules matching the boundaries? So, like, if I'm supposed to have a reviewer on my pull request, and I submit a pull request without a reviewer, and that just gets pushed out, does that match the boundary? No.
Well, yeah, and I think to go another level, it's like, does it match the needs? Like,
Yeah.
do we have rules that, like before, not everybody needed a reviewer. Like, you know, it's like an extra rule that you don't need sometimes. Because if the money goes there, then that's a review, it's like double review.
Yep. Sure.
So what do we do with this to go on? Like, because that's indeed what it comes down to. So, do we give some examples of where we feel it, where it doesn't match, or how do we approach this specific principle?
I will remark the question that I was doing before. I mean, let's start by defining our conditions, our needs. Okay, when we have that clear, let's see the rules that we have that are matching with them.
Okay. But for that we have, of course, also specific sessions where we're gonna talk about like what is the need that we're fulfilling with Giveth, and these are the goals that we want to achieve in the world.
No, I want to go, of course, straightforward. Like, for me, needs could be, I don't know, getting rewards.
Yeah, needs
For
within
example,
Giveth.
around
Yeah.
the Giveth concept, the DAC concept, everything. And the conditions is more about the Ethereum ecosystem, no? And
Yeah, so let's
being
maybe stick
crypto,
to
matching governance
yeah.
over
Let's
that.
stick to like Giveth, like what we within Giveth can.
Well, so like one of the rules is to get paid, generally you need to put up a milestone on a DAP.
Yeah.
And that's a nice, I think it matches our needs well, because we also need to beta test the DAP. And so like there's like a nice,
Let me piggyback on that, because I actually wanted to say this. This is part of why we have roles. Like, the roles do look at the rules and see if they make sense. And like, so for example, this example with GitHub, like I changed it and I can change it back, and there's like, it usually stays in this domain and it's about like what works best. People accept a lot of input there, so I think that's fine. It's just something that's very atomic, and that's really that people should be mindful of that have roles. Always look at your processes, at the rules, like, do they make sense? And we do have a system, which is the policy system. We use Lumio for decision making, and yeah, anybody can suggest a policy, and that gets to be a new rule.
Yeah, well, yeah, actually, so we get back to the things we already said. The biggest one that come back are like the DAP to get paid, roles to like define what people do, the Lumio to take decisions, the Unicorn DAC to get onboarded and use that project. So I think actually this one is a pretty simple. I feel we can like score that one pretty easily. So maybe unless people have still no, okay. So how well do we score on like having rules and matching it with the things that we do?
you can start.
I give it a 6.
Josh?
Probably go with a 7. Right? I think the digital commons point that Kai raised is pretty spot on there.
You pass. I give it a 5 just because I think the rules need a lot of work. The roles, sorry, especially concerning our needs.
Fair point.
Danny?
I'm gonna give it a 6 because I feel like our needs definition could use some strength for matching.
Danny, do you remember what you said last time?
8.
I will give it an 8. I think, I don't know, at least in my head that the needs and conditions were kind of clear, and I think that the way that you govern over your DAB, over the resources that you have is matching whatever. Yeah.
I'm gonna go with a 5, because I think we do have rules that match our needs, but I think some of those could be tweaked and improved to better match those needs.
I think 5. I completely agree.
I'll give it a 5, pretty much for the same reasons as Kai, Danny, and Jeff.
7.
Cool. Okay, now we can go to the third one, and actually I think we're reaching a point of like that this flow could work. We first explain the rule, we give some random examples, then we immediately go through the circle, you give your score, and you say why you give that score, like a short explanation, because then we're going to go quick, and then we can use that feedback to improve our processes and as sensors for the rest of the week. Okay, next one.
Just like, because like lunar, like just be lunar for a second and then be the sun for, and let's see,
Correct,
okay, that's
but
the
for every rule we go lunar and then we go solar.
Yeah, so let's make the scoring at the end. I mean, we can do it more fluidly, or...
My proposal as facilitator is right now that we do a scoring per rule, because then we get very more tangible input on what we can improve per not an overall score. We can do an overall score at the end as well. Okay, the next one.
Ensure those affected by rules can participate in their modification.
Oh yeah.
This is easy, I think.
Rules, and the people impacted by the rules can partake in like changing them.
10.
Hang on, first do we need to clarify this a little bit? Like, can we give some examples of like how we do this within Giveth?
I think advice process is clearly, it's like it came straight out of this role.
Yeah, definitely. The advice process is one, a big one.
The Lumio proposal process.
Yes.
Oh, that's another 10.
And I think
That's actually what I'm saying, like, there's no comment, like...
Yeah.
Rules can prevent changing.
Just that there's a fair amount of organizational flexibility too. So if it's like a small thing that doesn't require the full extent of going through the advice process or submitting something to a Lumio vote, oftentimes when there's just like a little hiccup in the workflow, I've seen it kind of get massaged out organically, you know.
That's because of the roles, like, part of the roles is to take the initiative within their domain, to not, like, use the advice process to look, oh, do I need to ask anybody, or...
Yeah.
I think the fact that our meetings, our communication and DAP and community meetings are open to the public means anybody who feels like they're impacted can find out how to participate and show up for a call and say what they think.
Definitely. Yeah. I think something that comes up when I see this, I have to think about that, the principle of the tyranny of structurelessness. That like sometimes when we talked in the previous points, like if some things are, or boundaries are ill-defined, some things are less easy to change. Some of the rules that are like deep, that we often is going to come up in that session, what might frustrate you in the future. But I think there are some set rules that we are not even aware of. But
yeah, the unspoken rules.
Yeah, there's some that just some stuff that happens. Can we score or yeah?
Can I propose just like a very quick framework for this? There's like a reversibility.
Token bonding?
No. Like, do I need to ask somebody reversibility and like consequence or severity? You know, like the less irreversible something is, and the more consequence it has, the more it needs widening of the circle. The more reversible it is, and the less consequence it has, the more I can decide on my own.
Very good addition. Okay, so again, so the rule is, so you can, if there are rules, and are we as a community able to partake in changing those rules? So I give it a 7, and the fact that it's not higher for me is because there are some deep unspoken rules in like how Giveth started. Also that we have a sole a funder person right now, which like by default creates a sort of like, we're gonna listen to Griff on this one, and that's no criticism, it's just like a reality. So that for that reason I give it a 7. Josh?
Yeah, I probably agree with that. There's unspoken stuff, I think, that's kind of unclear, unbounded, and we don't know what they are, and it's really hard to articulate. So, other than that, the rules that are articulated and made explicit, I think they're very, very changeable. So, I'd go towards the 10 in that regard, but given that there are kind of subsurface bits, then I'd go with probably, I'd give it an 8, 9, 8.5.
Okay. Lorelai?
Yeah, I give it a 9, because despite certain like influences and assumptions from the beginning, I think that like if truly like a majority of people were with a certain decision or change, almost for sure it would happen.
Okay. Okay.
Very good point with the little blind spots we have, so I give it a 9, but you have to look hard.
He wanted the 10.
Yeah.
Danny?
Yeah, I'm at a 9 because I really believe that anybody who has a well-formed position and opinion has the ability to express it and influence change.
For sure. Yeah.
I give it a 10. Because I mean I get your point about the unspoken rules, but if there are unspoken rules, then speak about it. So, and I think that you guys can speak about stuff. So, 10.
9.
No further comments?
Pass.
Okay.
I give it a 9. I think I agree with the opportunity that it comes to expressing minds and unspoken rules. Well, I think that those can shape through the course of the development.
Yeah, I'll give it a 9. Definitely don't want to suggest that there's not room for improvement. There always is, but yeah, I mean there are some unspoken rules, but like I was kind of trying to say before, I think there's also some flexibility in there that actually makes it easier to get things done with less bureaucracy, which to me, as long as we're able to kind of get done what we need done, that's the most important thing. Whether we do it by rules or in the spaces between rules, the rules are still functioning, kind of.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 9.7 because I agree there are definitely some unspoken rules and there's always room for improvement. But I think like Unicorn DAC has a lot of power as well to like affect change, and also there is always opportunity to get like the funding influence is it sucks, but it's also like anyone can join the funding circle and try to find ways to get funding. So, and I really think just reading the text, like those affected by rules can partake in changing them.
For sure.
Feels like they can really, really well.
And I'm gonna adapt my score to 8.5 because all these points make a whole lot of sense from everyone, and we have the agency for change if we want to. So yeah. Cool. Principle number 4.
Dun, dun, dun. Make sure the rule-making rights of community members are respected by outside authorities.
No.
What? So a 0 from the SEC.
So, Ken, is there any more context you want to give, or? About
yeah. So, like, if we self-determine something, and like we've determined some rules, and there is a 50-50 split on said rules, then you go to the external authority in the cantons, for instance, and I think could be somewhere else, but like they literally just go, okay, we can't decide, we need an adjudicator. Mr. Courtman, Mr. Judge, please can you decide, make a judgment call for us. And if the judge doesn't respect the conditions set up initially, then the judge won't make judgment, or they'll rule in the favour of the way that it goes according to what they do recognise, which then can bias the result.
And is it always that happens when you're like having a conflict internally and you have to go to an external party?
Yeah, so it's like the California water basins, they're like different counties dealing with each other, so they need an adjudicator when they can't deal with each other, and they just take it legal when that happens. But
Okay, do you have a way that this applies to Giveth, that we sometimes have situations that we cannot like figure out ourselves and we need to deal with the outside world? I'm thinking about the financial, we need to get paid, so we sometimes have already had situations that we have to figure out, like, how do we pay people in DAI or anything, and hold that discussions maybe related to this, I don't know.
Can I make a suggestion that we fade to black on this specific one? So we can have an honest
No.
conversation.
I think we can talk. To
You
be
do
honest.
that?
I don't particularly, I just would rather...
You
remain
can talk
out.
like this off camera.
Yeah, just go outside of the image if you have something to say. I don't know what it is.
Well, like, there would be a lot of, like, employment regulation set up throughout Europe that, like, is there because of employment fuckeries, you know, and disagreements throughout God knows how long.
Yeah.
But, like, if we're a non-entity, then we're non-employed technically, which means then there are no rights, really.
We are not.
Which means that we can't have anyone
Yeah,
rule
but,
on any of our disagreements surrounding
I
cash,
think
etc.
this is about.
All that all together. Yeah, you go first, and then it's Danny. Go ahead.
This is about before. Let's define what authority do we want to respect somehow. I mean,
That's also...
because we're coming. If we believe all of this, we're coming to the age of having digital jurisdictions.
Okay.
No.
Danny?
Yeah, so I feel like it would be useful for us to talk about external forces and who are they that we would even be asking for respect from. Because like we're applying for grants from external foundations and they look at how we are set up and using those funds to accomplish the work we say, that's being, that's a respect from an external organization. Mm-hmm. Do we care what particular governments think about our rules? Are they an external entity that we even require their respect from, or are we acting in a way that there are only certain external forces, the people who are within our circles of trust? They're external to Giveth, but we don't have to go all the way wide to say, does the IRS respect our regular reward systems or not?
Yeah.
Right? But do organizations that we exchange with respect the rules that we've established for how we govern our commons? And I would say that's a yes, because many external organizations want to collaborate with us. So our rights the rule-making rights of our members are being externally respected by those we engage with.
That's a really good point, because we don't indeed abide by the law, so to say, but that's not, so everyone would give a 0 score on that probably, but this is more relevant to us.
Right, I mean we're choosing to build a system that is not dependent on external validation by certain forces, so why would we score ourselves with that?
Yeah, exactly. I don't think that I think that our rule-making rights internally are respected by outside forces because they don't have a real way to stop it, right? We don't use banks. We use a lot of, the only external forces that we use to pay ourselves and to organize ourselves are open source software and in the Ethereum blockchain. So if I say, hey, I want to fund a project, there's not really anybody that can stop that.
Indeed.
Which is why we set it up the way we did.
Yeah. I think it's very important to say, I don't know, you said, who said we don't respect the law? Because I think we do.
Well,
I mean, so I do want
For
to
the
say,
record, we do.
For the record, I consider us to be there's this nice role playing, pen and paper role playing. So I would say we're lawful good, or we're probably more neutral good,
So we're law-abiding citizens. But
we are in general, we abide by the law.
Okay,
yeah,
so
I think our org does for sure. Individuals, that's up to them.
that is up to them.
Yeah.
So the question, Josh, you wanted to add something there?
So I think we're kind of off it a bit, really. I think it's down to how do we resolve disputes through third parties.
Yeah, so that was a question, and do we score well on that or not? You had another clarifying thing?
Were you writing on the paper with the whiteboard pen?
Oh, is that not allowed?
It'll mess up the whiteboard.
Oh. Is that the other one?
Those are all whiteboard.
So red, black, blue.
Oh, sorry. Okay, good point. Okay, so let's that first part is always just more clarifying and see how it applies to Giveth. So I think we know that now. It's how well are we in, you say the last sentence you said, what's it going to?
Is resolution of conflict from externalities.
That's part of this? Is conflict resolutions? Because just in the text of it, I don't really see that.
Make sure the rule-making rights of community members are respected by outside authorities. And I'm just referring back to my knowledge of Ostrom's work because that's just taken from some website. You know?
Oh, okay.
But from what she discusses, it's about how like infringements that occur, how they're resolved if the San Bernardino basin has agreed to only use so much water and then drains it further. And then there's a dispute from the California basin or whatever.
So there's external help in that case.
Yeah, so they go to a judge to kind of rule on things. Or
Is it okay if we go with that definition to score, Griff?
I mean, I don't know. Do you guys feel like we still have this? I feel like we haven't really discussed what does external conflict resolution within Giveth look like?
With me, I would say the thing that you mentioned is we have the tools. We have tools like we use tools for external conflict resolution. For our conflict resolution when we go to the external world, and there's existing tools like Lumio and Holacracy and all these things. We don't use people.
If it was respected now, right, the Giveth 1 and Giveth 2 kind of situation would be a good example of how you resolve that from an outside entity. Because neither party are kind of wanting, well, maybe they are, I don't know the full story, but it's how do you resolve that if, like, neither party, if there's a, like, lines drawn in the sand and there's been shots fired.
Giveth 1 and Giveth 2?
Well,
Yeah,
Giveth
well,
1.
when that was happening.
Giveth and Giveth 1.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Let's go like that.
That's really I got it. So that is indeed like we resolved that by just like pushing a little bit Giveth. It was not an external party who helped us with that one.
Yeah.
Well, we could have, but we didn't.
Yeah, like when we had, yeah.
What external party? Hudson?
No, call like a peer organization. Ask like a jury from Aragon and Status and some of the peers we respect. To
Okay,
help
yeah,
us.
so
that
Hudson
would be
was
a
not a
thing.
bad example.
We could have done that, but we chose not to.
Yeah.
And I think in general, sort of like bringing in other actors into the field to resolve internal conflicts might shake external faith in Giveth's ability to move forward as a strong organization.
Well,
It's a question. Like the Commons does it, apparently.
I think that asking for help should not be a sign of weakness.
I agree.
But saying
It
like
often
we
is.
can't decide on a way forward and we're like
because there's means of last resort, so
Yeah,
it's like
because-
shots
Yeah.
have been fired, but if like everybody agrees and submits to a higher power before that actually occurs, and then we have a split of some sort,
Okay.
shots are fired, you go talk to Aragon like, oh, well, we've
Yeah.
watched the evolution of this.
Yeah, I mean,
Let's
I think
resolve
that
it.
that's an unhealthy like value of old paradigms, right? And we're looking
you.
at commons as new paradigms that ideally are healthy if they're following these principles. And like that very shame of like the idea that, oh, we couldn't resolve this on our own, now let's ask for external help within the community. The idea that that's bad in any way is like, it's something from like nuclear family, like isolationist, like cultural values. It's like definitely a tool of
Separatist
colonization
instead of
and separatism.
Unification.
Yeah.
Um,
So I would so I think we get it now what that point is. The concrete example that we can give was, well, not everyone knows all the details, but one of the examples is that we had to there was a part of the team that wanted to start Giveth 1 with the same name. So that is an example of this situation. We did not go for external help there. So I vote on how we deal with this situation. I give it an 8.
for the principle number 4.
Yes.
Okay.
So we did indeed, there's improvement for sure. I think, I'm just thinking of that example because I can't think of others. I think we did really well because we used the advice process really well within Giveth, which is already a very large group of people. So I give it an 8. And I think it's mostly, it hasn't been applicable on us for now.
Can I write for you?
Yeah, you can write.
What does that say?
Rule making versus...
See, you don't even know.
External authority.
Membership. So the point is the rulemaking
Matching
rights of
external
membership
authority.
externally respected?
Yeah.
I mean, to me, this says like, are we an autonomous organization? You know,
It's-
like it's like,
Versus
do we have our own
external
autonomy?
authority. Yeah, that one was it.
And I think we're killing it on that, but like, I don't know.
I think
Yeah, but the
The
comments
second part of
is
that
a-
is,
yeah.
is that autonomy respected by external groups? We can say we're autonomous, but if someone can come in and run roughshod over all our rules and not care, then we're not really autonomous. So is
I
that
would love-
autonomy respected?
And I'm trying to think of where they could do that, right? Because they can't seize our funds. They can't. I mean, I guess they could kick us out of this apartment. But I don't really think. I think that'd be a hard.
They can
Like,
only
why?
weaken us.
What
Also,
terms
like
is
really
it
kill us
even?
is hard.
They could put us all in
Forbid
jail
us.
for tax evasion.
I mean, but that's and only the individuals who aren't paying taxes. That wouldn't stop Giveth,
Yeah.
right?
Okay, so I stick with my 8. I think we dealt with it well,
Yeah.
and when it comes to larger external authorities, we're pretty autonomous. So I stick with my 8.
Josh?
Yeah, like I think that we do deal with it quite healthily for sure. In terms of external authorities and stuff, like I don't see how Giveth 1 split could have been avoided without talking kind of thing and all that, but if they wanted to, they could have just done that, you know what I'm saying? So I'm
Yeah.
probably with Chris on the 8 there, that they could have just gone and done what they done, but luckily didn't after some discussion.
Wait, what's your score?
Okay.
8.
Kai?
I think.
Well, yeah, I would also say we're killing it. There is not many authorities that have any say. I mean, and this is an endless topic, but I give it a 9.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 9 too. I definitely think that we're structured to be externally respected with our rules. I will say that I think we have a lot of room for growth on how we leverage that for ourselves.
I don't know if to pass or give it a 0, but because I don't recognize any external authority. I mean, there could be an external authority, but it's not there yet. A decentralized external authority, so 0, I guess.
Okay.
7. And I think there's a lot more kind of interface with external authorities that is coming in the future, so I think that's something to keep on our
Keep it
radar.
focused. Yeah.
I personally didn't maybe haven't experienced or haven't there to face it, but I think this specific scenario, I mean, I will give it a 10 because any number below it, I don't think anybody will be here today. So 10 is a success. And actually, handling this type of situations will be if you're doing something that nobody's doing and you're actually helping, doing something positive, I don't think nobody will tell you not to. That's human nature, common sense. Hopefully. And so I give it.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're autonomous. I don't think our autonomy has ever really been compromised, but at the same time, it's hard for me to sort of really envision what a serious challenge to our autonomy would look like, so I could put a number on it, but I don't feel like it would be that meaningful. I don't think we've ever really been put to the test in terms of our autonomy being challenged, meaningfully. I guess some people consider the Giveth 1 thing that, but yeah, I don't know. I don't think that was a spectacular example of diplomacy really on either side, So I don't know what number would really be appropriate, but
Okay.
we're definitely, I see us as autonomous. I mean, I don't know what would ever change that.
Great.
Yeah, I'm gonna give us 9.5. I think that would have just a few things that we need to worry about, but very few, and that they're all manageable. Like Rinkaby network, technically that could just be all erased, and that handles a lot of our stuff. But I'm pretty sure we would have a good heads up on that, and we would be able to port it over to whatever else changes. I'm I'm pretty sure that any rules we make, because of the way we're structured, it is really difficult for anyone from outside of our group to really come in and disrespect those rules. So it's just difficult to find a way.
That will be battery or something.
Lorelei?
I'm gonna give it a 9. I don't have anything to say about it though.
Okay. Then we can go to the next one.
We've got 20 minutes
So
left.
just
give me a quick.
Last
We're
point on
at
the last
No,
point.
we're at 4:10 right now, we have
it-
total 20
It's
minutes.
not necessarily about being shut down, it's also about being enabled by externalities. So like, if we say we're going to do something and then we're blocked by, you know, a sub-faction or whatnot, it's the aid of external organisations coming to enable us as well as potential shutdowns from the SEC, etc. So it's kind of a balance of both. It's not about domination in any way, it's just
Goes
about
both ways.
how respected it is and our relations with the external kind of sides of things.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, the next one, because we only have 20 minutes,
Sure.
so we have to be a bit efficient here.
Where are we? Develop system.
More than halfway. We're getting into
Develop a
We
system
have 10
carried
minutes
out
if
by
we want
community
10
members
minutes
for
for
monitoring each other's behaviour.
Sorry, can you say one?
Monitoring. So it's monitoring, internal monitoring.
If that happens.
And punishments, is that part of it?
Graduated sanctions next.
It means
Like
like you
develop-
don't kick one out like for the first mishap, but you gradually
That's the next one.
increase. Oh,
That's the next one.
Okay.
System carried out by the community
Okay,
members
let's
for
focus on this
monitoring
one.
each other's
Okay, so
behaviour.
develop a what?
So this is feedback on each other's roles, for instance.
Yeah.
This isn't about the validation, for example, that people do on other people's job when you are in that.
Yeah, this is actually making sure that people are accountable and that you can really have feedback on other people, literally. Personally, because I don't know how long the others can take, and I saw people nodding. I think honestly this one is a pretty clear one. We have an example within Giveth is that we have our roles meeting, we have our weekly community meeting, we have many one-to-ones where you can give feedback, we have a number of set meetings like the DAP meeting, communication meeting, all these things, where there's also moments for feedback.
we have GitHub.
And we have GitHub to make issues, that's also a beautiful example.
We have Giveth DAC again.
Yeah.
Can anybody give me a reason why we aren't to 10?
Sorry?
For monitoring.
Why we
No,
are
I
at 10?
can because
Oh well, we'll do the scoring in a second, we'll see.
it's like, for
Well-
example, my biggest gripe with monitoring, which would be nice, like I dream of where we can have more passive numbers that just flow out of our behavior that would give some sort of like whatever source credit is doing, or you know, because GitHub is nice, but it only works for developers. It helps to push a lot of product management also to GitHub to say, because you have a GitHub history now, because you can say your comms, I think. So this is very important because it really shows in the end. It enables external audit of something.
Okay, so what you did there now is giving a reaction, like what we
No, this is
Yeah.
also like, or I was just, you were saying,
Yeah,
can
I was like,
anybody
tell
give
me
me a reason?
something.
why it's not a 10?
Tell me a
So that's your
deficiency.
reason.
Okay.
You know?
Knowing how each other work, our strengths and weaknesses together on a particular job.
Yeah, that's also one.
That's
Like
monitoring.
how well do we know each other to really know if we can expect something of someone else?
Is it safe to like can I go off work on my own because other people will know I'll do a job that's worth doing, and like
Yeah.
if I do it on my own, will anybody give a fuck?
Yeah.
It's that kind of thing. Because if you don't know the quality of one's work, then you don't know. You're monitoring if you're not working together.
Okay,
and you don't have it.
I have a score from you, Josh, on this one.
I'm gonna go with 5, I think,
Why?
because of those reasons just stated.
Can we talk about it just a little bit longer?
Yeah, I'm
like,
just timing and looking, but go ahead. Yeah.
I think that there's kind of that just looking ahead, the next one is sanctions. So I feel like we have a lot of monitoring systems, but on the next one I think we're gonna get a really low score because we don't really use those to provide sanctions. And now we're at a major disadvantage compared to people who are in the same office and get to see what each other do every day. But in the end, I think that we have a role system which maybe hasn't been like really followed for the last like 3 months or 4 months, but or 3 months. But like I think the systems are really strong. It's just whether or not we apply them well.
Okay, and so how much would you score us on that one then?
9.5.
9.5? Okay. If it's okay, I'll just give, because I have exactly the same point as you. The score, the roles meeting is good, but it hasn't happened in the last 3 months. So for that reason, I'm going to give I would give a 9, but right now I would give us a 7, and we're not going to get ever to it anything because of the fact that we're not all in the same office and that you cannot quickly interact and give the feedback. That is what we're doing this now. So a 7. Adam, sorry, because I interrupted the order.
We can go around this way. I mean, there's, sort of a lot to say. I don't want to take up a lot of time though, so, I'm gonna actually pass.
I think there's room for improvement, and I will give it an 8 for internal monitoring.
8, room for improvement.
9.
Systems in place.
Yeah, the tools are there, and the ways to monitor each other are there as well. 9.
Yeah, I'm gonna say a 9 because I believe we have the system. And so the room for improvement is how we actually effectively use the system. But we have it, and it's efficient and effective. We just gotta get better at how we use it.
Yep.
Well, we do have a lot of manual internal monitoring, and I would really love to automate it because we live so much in a digital realm, and it's one of the real problems with digital commons anyway. So it would be nice for me always to be at the forefront of people who try things to monitor themselves, and it would be nice if it needed less of our work, because that's our main hindrance with roles process, I think, is the time it takes. It's so exhausting, and there is not much, like, people just don't go there and do their thing, and they're done. It's like this, it feels like this heavy thing, and it is big. Yeah, I'll give it a, like, say 6.
6?
6.
Lorelai?
I'll give it an 8. I often don't know what other people are doing. Like, I usually feel like I can tell if they're doing a good job, but I often don't know what they are actually doing. So, but yeah, I think we have a pretty strong system for monitoring each other. Otherwise.
Cool. So
Griff, did you give a number?
Yeah, 9.5. And Josh did too. Okay, so we can go to the next one.
Graduated sanctions for rule violation.
Okay, so we already introduced that one a little bit. Like, what do we have in Giveth for? Do we have examples of sanctions within Giveth? Shame or not?
I mean, I think we fail at this miserably. I don't think we really enforce anything.
Is there one? Do you have a short explanation why this is very important to have this within the comments?
So if you're caught stealing trees from your neighbour's forest because you've got a large family to feed, well, you might need to steal the trees because you have a large family to feed, but at the same time you need to be reprimanded so that you don't constantly steal everyone else's trees. So usually there'd be guys in China running around on horseback throughout the forest. If they catch someone, then they'd be fined, and usually the fine is, like, it can be massive, but it rarely is. It starts usually with, like, you owe me a couple of bottles of alcohol now, and then it gets worse from there. The more they're caught and the more the rules are broken.
Yeah. Okay.
So it starts with a light slap on the wrist, and then after that it kind of goes deeper.
Okay. Can we? So I think we get the point. Can we do a scoring to stay within the time? Mm-hmm. Yeah. We continue in this, Griff. Go ahead.
I'll give it a 2.
Okay.
I don't want to give it a 1, but I can't think of any examples of any sanctions that have ever been applied or even really discussed as like a tool in our toolkit. So, yeah.
Well,
Did you give a number? 1?
I said I don't want to, but I feel like I kind of have to.
I think I would give it a 6, just because there is actually, like, I don't really know if there's sanctions, but the real question might be like, sanctions are extremely necessary. Like, for example, part of the growth is self-awareness and self-ruling. So if you can stay under the boundaries yourself, I mean, you don't have to have sanctions. If you have sanctions, you are out of your place, like you're out of the frame. So it needs to be like something self-awareness, but.
So how much do you get?
6.
Can I piggyback a little?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if it's we do sort of have graduated sanctions in the way of like, if people ask for money for their role to being filled, like the Unicorn DAC will fill it slower if they're not doing their job. I don't know, it's still kind of like a plus, it's not a sanction, like steps back, it's just like not filling expectations to the extent that they can be.
I think we're not still completely honest there, because I split it often because some people, you just like, but I'm not putting my money where the action always is, because I want it to be fair for everyone. But it's a good mechanism that we do have.
Yeah, I mean, does anyone see any other sanctions that we put forth?
Yes. So the thing is that our sanction system is not active, it's passive. Where it works around social behavior and control. It works so, and actually the term is free rider problem.
Yeah.
That's what you want to solve. Like, because the comments, like, it's a good example is the regular rewards, you know. And if there was something like, there was maybe something with like the guy who is not here anymore, who had maybe like a regular reward, who we kind of discovered like had a strange working relationship, and there was no sanction there, so we definitely felt it. But usually before that happens, people would leave the group or they would not join in the first place. And it's really, and the part that is active is actually the funding itself that works, like you said, through the DAP. And the Unicorn DAC would be better if we were not in full scarcity mode and funding the regular rewards.
Okay,
and there's so many.
We have 3 extra remarks. Just know that time is almost up. So please give a brief.
I just want to say I think that the way this is framed, it would help us to realize that we've kind of turned things around where instead of sanctions, which is punishment, we just withdraw the carrots. So we don't really have a bunch of sticks. So it's hard for us to say, well, we put it. But if you don't deliver and perform what you're working on, you don't get your carrots. So there's the opposite side of that. If you want your milestones to get funded, if you want to feel valued for your contributions, you need to say what you did and who you are, and then you get your points, you get your whatever that is.
Reward system.
But if you're not participating actively, or you're not upholding that, then you don't actually receive the benefits. So that's you bring your sanctions upon yourself. We're not imposing them. We've structured the system differently.
Okay.
So I feel like we do have a system, but it's more a matter of withholding carrots than imposing sanctions.
Cool. What is your score? Then we add that in.
I'm going to give it a 7.
Okay, did you give a score?
No, I think that when we're talking about sanctions, we need to sanction like free riders' behaviors somehow, no? And I think that at the end of the day, everyone, at least someone in their life, have this kind of behaviors. And the thing is that when you base organizations on relationships, as that happens, maybe identifying and marking and signaling those behaviors on the other is not that easy. I mean, I haven't been deep into that, but I'm pretty sure it's not that easy, so I'll give it a 1 also, because I don't think there is a sanction mechanism.
Lorela, you had your hand up as well, so you can. Yeah.
I'll give my number too. So I think that like good examples is like when people have been not acting in open source principle, transparency, all that, like having secret meetings, whatever, things like that. There's definitely been like clear like breaking of like trusting relationship there, which I think is the like highest form of punishment in Giveth is like the break of a trusting relationship. But to me, sanction means like something that is laid out as a rule, and I think that all of our stuff is responsive and reactive. It's not like a steadfast rule of like how to proceed when a certain thing happens. So I would give sanctions a 1.
1? Okay.
Gustavo, did you give a number?
1.
Yeah. Josh?
Yeah, I'm kind of with Loey on the. I'm trying to think about how this actually works elsewhere. So I'm with it on the. There is probably an attenuation kind of thing that happens and social pressures that go into the mix, but I'm not sure they're a listed kind of sanction or a listed expectations, etc. So I'm not really sure where that fits. Like, yeah, I don't really have anything. So
No?
I'm
Okay.
gonna skip, I think.
I think that right now we're doing pretty okay, but if you think of us as a commons that can scale to like, the Dunbar number, we will not function. So it's something that we need to pay attention to, because there's now already been situations that some people are like for a while not really working and they get the reward anyways, because there's just trust, so we just continue, but there's a feeling that is not always good. So I would give it a 4.
And I didn't hear from Kai or Jeff.
Yes. So I didn't put a number. I was still a discussion. But I will also go a bit lower because the thing you said, like this doesn't scale. It has to do with our internal monitoring that I criticized that it's not so passive and coming out of numbers. If it was, it would be easier with many people. So I don't know, 5, and it would be interesting to approach this somehow. Like, I mean, it should be there. Like, we should have rules. Like, you knew what the rule was. Like, I don't want to be a dick, but
Yeah. And it's how the horse can operate.
3, and we have 3 minutes remaining.
Okay. And we have 2 more to go through.
Can you write super legibly, Chris?
Yes.
What's the next one?
Provide an accessible, low-cost means for dispute resolution.
Dispute resolution.
Provide a good what?
Low is
Low
cheap.
cost.
Accessible, low-cost means for dispute resolution.
Okay, so examples of that are Lowy within Giveth. So I can give the example of like ones that there was like pretty much of a conflict within Giveth that needed to be addressed, and we did that really well. So that's one example.
10.
I give it an 8 because we only have Lowy as only thing.
no, I wouldn't say so because there's many ways of like Lumio and the community
That is
meetings.
true.
There's such a gradient. Like Lori is the last resort, or the most if it's a really sensitive thing. Like she's the, the scalpel.
That is true.
Oh.
Yeah.
I stick
Did
with
you have
my
a number?
8. Yeah.
Yeah, I give it 9. I think we're very good at this.
Yeah, I'll go with 9.5. I think we have so much dispute resolution opportunities. The DAP, if your thing gets funded, then you get the money, we have reviewers on those things. We have Lumios, we have advice processes, we have there's so many, in our governance meetings, we have
Yeah,
these
I'm
things.
a 9.5.
I'm a 9 as well.
Amen.
I'm a 9.
With Adam?
Yeah, 9, I agree. I think we have a lot of mechanisms at our disposal, and even if you don't want to use one of those, if you have a concern, you can just shout it out at one of many, many meetings. So,
Andre?
I'll go with 8 just because I noticed there's a lot of systems that are working, but personally I felt yesterday, for example, that the customer attendance and support, there's not actually not a thing I was giving support to Marco yesterday, so and I felt like there was no other response than me. So customer support, there's
Those
an
are also
opportunity to
tensions, yeah, for sure. There's an improvement must be. Okay, did everyone go for this one?
Is it a bug or a feature?
I'm missing Josh and Gustavo for numbers.
Oh, I said 9. I think Gus did.
Nine, both of us.
Perfect.
Okay, the
There are a lot of
final
names.
one. We're going to go a little bit over time, but we'll try to keep this one concise.
Build responsibility from low to high, governing the resource in nested tiers.
customer business.
Build from low to high.
Bottom up. Bottom up from build from the edges inwards essentially in nested tiers.
Button up responsibility, could be.
The what?
Button up responsibility will be that fine.
That's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, and also just how
For
you build
governing the resource, specifically was the wording that I pulled off the net. To be fair.
So it's like nested networks.
Right.
So it's decentralization actually.
Circles.
Yeah.
Yeah, be the concentric circles. Yeah.
Like circles, rolls.
I mean, and here it's funny because we actually like usually, I mean, yeah, I should have maybe got the thought earlier. We never talked about what it is like the common resource. Like, okay, yeah, make it easy now and say let's make the resource the DAP, but there's many commons
It's our
within
it's our DAC.
yeah.
It's our entire
The
DAC.
organization.
Our
Because
brand.
on this distinction, like bottom up, it's very important because something like the whitelist for the DAP makes the friction so hard that I wouldn't call it bottom up because you need our permission. I mean, you can forget it, that doesn't make it easier. Whereas the community, like to replicate the community, yeah, it's not so easy at the moment, but you could like, see how we work and it's manageable. Just like two different.
Do you have a score?
A score. So I give it 7 because we have the whitelist on the DAP.
Okay. I give it an 8.5 because I think that the things that we said before. First of all, we have all our tools indeed. Plus, if you see something that doesn't work, it's like, hey, if your brain is attuned to it, do it, and you can do it. You have we empower you to do the stuff yourself. So we are very bottom up in our essence. So maybe a 9. I even go for a 9.
I think I'm actually gonna give this one a little bit lower when I look at it. Because the way I'm reading it is the responsibility for governing the common resource is built from the lowest level up. So like part of me wants to say we have that because the milestone creation is, you know, whoever's submitting that milestone and doing that work is sort of our bottom level. But how much responsibility do they have for deciding whether they get funded or not? I don't actually think they do have a lot of that. I think that the way our system is built, there's those who govern the resources and delegate it to the milestones, but how much do the people who are creating those milestones have influence over what gets funded?
But that's specifically for the current UI of the DAP. But like for us as a community, how do we score on it? Like on
That's
that.
an interesting point. Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 6.
Okay.
I think that the way I read it, this is very how decisions are being like meaningful decisions about the resources over the money, no, are being made, if top down or bottom up. And the way I see it, it's very clear that there is like a strong leadership in Giveth. I'm not criticism in this moment. I'm not decentralization maximalist, but you need to start by centralizing somehow, no? Which is okay when Giveth is this amount of people, no? But when you scale that up, you really need to establish those rules there. So at the moment, maybe bottom up, top down is very easy to equilibrate because we are few people, but it's something to be very careful about to escalate this up. Having said so, I won't give any votation here.
No numbers?
No.
Okay. Jeff?
6. I think we have a lot of the structures in place, but room to improve, and
So when I'm reading this, like just reading online about what this means, it actually says not bottom up. It's like saying that some things should be bottom up, but other things need to be managed by higher levels. For instance, it says like some things can be managed locally, but some might need wider regional cooperation. For example, an irrigation network might depend on a river that also draw on upstream things. Another one says nested enterprises. When a common pool resource is closely connected to larger socio-ecological systems, governance activities are organized in multiple nested layers. And I think that we do a pretty good job with it. It's definitely not perfect, but I think that we give all the opportunities to go bottom up by default, but then there's a campaign manager managing the resources, or there's a whitelist, or there's an admin here or there, when it's like we feel like we need somebody to govern that section of the resource. So I actually think we do a really good job with this.
So that term is subsidiarity, where the decision is made at the lowest level that is appropriate. So it's not saying that everything has to be made at the bottom level, but the things that can be decided there are, and the things that have to be decided at a group level are, and the things that have to be decided at a national level, etc., global level, but that you push the decision down as far as it can go, not as far as possible.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
I want to change my score now,
Yeah,
because I
I do
just looked
too.
things up a little bit more too.
Yeah.
So it speaks of them being organized appropriately in those multiple layers of nested enterprises.
Yeah.
Everything from appropriation, provision, monitoring, enforcement, governance activities are organized in those effective layers, and I think we do that really well. So I'll go back up to bottom 8.
Okay. Chad, did you give a score now?
I did, but I'm going to change mine to an 8 as well.
Yeah, I went with 8.5.
Okay.
So.
Adam?
Yeah, I think 8 is a good score. I think there's a pretty well defined and well abided by kind of decision making hierarchy, or decision making kind of flow, let's say. So yeah.
Cool. Lorelai? Oh, did she? Okay, she's on. Josh? 8. Cool.
I need Gustavo, Andre.
Oh, sorry.
I know I didn't give it.
No,
Okay.
he skipped, but I skipped you.
Okay, I kind of get lost where the point change. Like
Is-
that's another point.
No, it's the same as like you. Well,
Okay.
I understood as like push down as much as possible, but there are some things that will need to be decided on a higher level.
Okay.
But you try to start from a principle as bottom up, if I got it correct.
From top to bottom, is that correct? Or
No, from bottom to top.
Bottom to top, the best that you can.
Yeah.
Okay, that would be an 8
Okay.
for the same reasons that.
Okay, cool.
That's
And mine is of course also higher.
Oh yeah.
The change of point. Like I also give it an 8 or 9. Give it a 9. Give it a 9.
Okay, so because we went over time, sorry about that. What I would propose is we quickly go through the 8, and Griff says what the score is we currently have, and then I say like 2 more words on possible next steps. So group boundaries, Griff. How much do we have?
Group boundaries was a 5.38. Well, can I propose that we do it in a slightly different way?
Sure.
That I just say the ones that we need the most work on?
Sure.
So the worst one by far was use of graduated sanctions for rule violators. We got a 3.3 out of 10.
Yeah.
I kind of want to say though, my one wasn't to say that we're fucking up really bad. It was just
No,
a
but it's
question
okay.
of what are the state of our
It's a
sanctions.
valid- it's a valid feedback.
Not having sanctions is another. Like, do we need sanctions is another question. But how good are our sanctions?
Listen,
It's a
Ostrom
one.
Yeah, that will depend on our calls.
More fiction.
Ostrom is just an old lady, whether or not we want to follow her.
She's dead, man.
She's dead.
An old lady.
She was an old lady.
A very
She's
old
body.
Wait, which other
Old
one?
dead lady.
So that
Guys,
was
it's discrimination.
Who is the moderator?
So the next is defining clear boundaries. We got a 5.3. And then close to defining clear group boundaries was matching rules that governing local to matching rules I don't know.
To external authority.
Yeah, the number
No,
4.
matching
Yeah.
rules governing goods to local needs.
That's
and
number 2.
conditions.
All local needs.
Yeah.
How much did we have there?
6.
Okay.
And then we got a 7.72 for number 5, develop a system carried out by community members for monitoring members' behavior.
Yep.
And then honestly the rest I think we got good passing scores. We got an 8.3 for building responsibility for governing the common resources in nested tiers, the last one, number 8. We got an 8.6 for making sure the rule-making rights of the community members are respected by outside forces. We do a great job with that.
8.6?
8.6. 9.07, a 9 flat for providing accessible low-cost means for dispute resolution.
Number 7.
Number 7. And then the highest score was ensuring those affected by rules can partake in changing them. So we got 9.07.
0.07.
0.07.
I know, okay.
So 9.1 if you want to run.
Okay, cool. So
Let's maybe then do a quick checkout. I could just say, as also with the checkout, I'll say something about the outcomes. What I propose is that the ones that we have a low score on, that we keep these for sure in mind. These will come back in other meetings and can be addressed there as well, like how we can build our tools better, which we need to work on. For example, so what are the strengths and challenges? That's a meeting where this one can be addressed. And we have what are we not good at, and in both meetings we can work on like the things that we need to address. And for the rest, check out. I just wanted to say thank you and apologize from my side that I didn't prepare like the process of doing this better, because we lost some time there before we got. I should have used the advice process and talked to Danny and Lorelai for that. But I think we had a very fruitful discussion. And I give it to Griff.
I thought that was a fantastic discussion. Love the deep dive into Eleanor Ostrom's 8 rules, which I have yet to do, other than reading them a couple of times. So I thought this was great.
I thought it was a great way to touch on a lot of topics that I look forward to getting deeper into over the course of the week.
Definitely, I think it was some rough, probably like reality things that is actually good to see to progress.
I liked it. I'm going to request that I put a title on that and we put it on the wall so we can refer to that in those other...
You probably want to rewrite this, but...
It's fine.
Yeah, good one. I enjoyed it a lot, and you did well. I mean, you at some point you...
Yeah, I changed it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this. I really like looking at the Giveth DAC and how that was initially defined decentralized altruistic community, and how does that actually relate to the commons. It has been a fabulous exercise because as we've discussed, there are things that we gave names to, and now we have more information, more understanding of the greater ecosystem that we're operating within, and how to be more relatable for that through this tool. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah, I think it's great. All this talk about commons this year was very delightful for me, but it's very important to look at ourselves and the common goods we can share, or we share, and that we govern. We will see more and more of these things creeping up, and they're getting more and more connected. So knowing these rules, like how they are defined, how commons are defined according to Ostrom, it's very important. I do hope it comes up again. I mean, I haven't finished it myself, but I do hope people stick with this manifesto, because the interesting thing is this body of work stopped 10 years ago almost. So she never got around to see the digital commons, and people continued the work, of course. And many of those are mentioned here, and will be even worth to look at some of the authors and branch off, but you don't have to do that. But just in this manifesto, because it's about the peer-to-peer commons that are different from these commons. Thank you very much for this good. Thank you.
Thank you for facilitating this, Chris. I enjoyed the conversation with everyone. I look forward to it being an iterative process and improving upon things as we go, but I think we did really well, so congrats, pats on the back all round.
And thanks for being the buddy.
On
Okay.
average, we got a 7.18. So
That's not
Yeah.
bad,
not
right?
bad. It's not
That'll
bad.
get you a university degree.
Yeah.
C for
You passed the
comments.
test. C for comments.
Alright, the stream will pause for now.